think it was 155 years ago today, just a few hundred yards away from here, Abraham Lincoln gave his second inaugural address. People would have been gathering right now for that. The oath of office, I think, was administered at noon. He gave the inaugural. If you saw the movie Lincoln, that's how the film ends. It flashes back after the president was assassinated to the inaugural, which I think is pretty much the consensus, even more than the Gettysburg Address, is probably the greatest speech in American political history, at least one of the top couple. You're in day 56 of an occupation. It's stunning to think of what those folks would think about us today. You're in the war room. 56 days of occupation by the National Guard. We still don't know why. That it's never been really put forward. Ray didn't give an actual very compelling reason the other day. Now the Capitol is essentially shut down. I mean, the Senate's working, but the House leadership has all left, right? The Democrats have left. I guess the Republicans with them because they've stopped business today because of I don't know, I guess they're calling it a QAnon threat. Right. You know, they've only got 5 people up there that are associated with any groups. I'm just going by the numbers. I think it's 5 people with anything of the 150 I think they've indicted or put charges up against. Still haven't found a weapon. So when Stephanie Ruhle sits there and goes, "Oh, this thing was by these taken over by the terror groups on domestic terror groups on January 6th," I'm just going by CNN's reporting. Not even going to the right wing sites. I'm just going to CNN. I think they said today it was 5, and they haven't found a weapon yet, or no weapons involved. We still don't have. We're going to have Darren Beattie on here in a few minutes, but still no the officer, the Capitol Police officer. But this is why it's a time for courage. Courage is contagious. What we try to do with this show is something a little different. We try to provide an apparatus so that you can get as much information as possible and you can come to your own judgment, but at least to give you and to contextualize things so that you have a mental map or you can build your own mental map, right, and then drop other information in as it goes on and come to your own conclusions, but to be active. This is not a passive show. We look to you. We reach out to you. The reason people come on here is they know they can talk to people that are going to get active. And this is not about giving money. This is not about writing checks, right? This is about engaging. This is about engagement. We try to give you all the sites you can go to for free. You don't have to sign up for everything, obviously, but find where your interests are. If you're fighting for your country, find where your interests are. We're here to empower you. The only way we're going to save this republic is through human agency, through your agency. You in this audience today, your agency. Okay, I think we do a pretty good job of showing people, particularly Democrats and former Democrats, what the issues are. And we, quote unquote, they say they red pill people. Well, I don't know what we do, but what we do is provide information. We have a lot of people that are former Democrats or independents that now understand what MAGA is, understand what America First is, and support those policies. And particularly, coming in droves are working class Hispanics and African Americans. Understand they love their country and they understand what the policies of this kind of globalist elites are. One thing I've seen throughout the world, though, and we've got to fight this all the time, you're seeing now, as you see here, something's changed with the social media oligarchs. You see it throughout the world. Tomorrow, in the second hour of the show, we're going to have one of the leaders of Alternative for Deutschland, which is a party that basically puts forward, particularly on immigration, a lot of the policies put out by in the Trump administration. And they're very close to being outlawed. I mean, Germany's getting very dangerous, is it not, Mr. Raheem Kassam? I mean, this is really your beat, the Europe and the continent and the European Union. But what has happened over the last couple of days, Alternative for Deutschland, didn't you see what's happened to Andrew Breitbart, as you guys reported? Yeah. What is going on here as this hammer drops by the authorities?
So the memory hole is alive and well, and that's what's happening here. I mean, you mentioned the story we had up about Andrew Breitbart last night. People were noticing on Twitter that Andrew Breitbart, when he passed away, was verified on Twitter. And very recently, it's hard to pinpoint exactly when it happened.
For our audience, why is verified? Why is blue check and verified so important? It's a term of art. What does it mean?
Well, a blue check mark on Twitter effectively was always supposed to mean that, yes, we have verified that this is the real public figure, the account of the real public figure that it says it is. It would also be something that would indicate to people that your account may be promoted. Twitter may suggest to people that they follow you. And it was also a means by which the public could understand that the information they were getting from those accounts was more likely to be endorsed or verified in some way by Twitter itself. Now, the blue check mark has quickly descended into a who's who of the left-wing Twitterati. those of us who still have blue check marks, who got them a long, long time ago. I mean, I think I got mine 6 years ago. Sort of check every day to see if ours are being removed. And with a sense of irony about it, but now there's not a sense of irony about it. They removed.
Andrew was one of the founders of Twitter. Basically, he was one of the first big personalities.
One of the first big people to use it,
and used it all the time, and brought people in, and people.
And
had
his
to use
trick was
retweeting the worst things said about him. The only fights we ever had were about Twitter. He was on Twitter. And I said, "Why didn't he need to come to the site?" This is before we launched. Andrew's the 9th anniversary. His passing away was Monday. This is the 9th anniversary of launching the Breitbart site. He had worked on it. We worked on it for, I guess, about a half a year. And I kept telling him, why are you on Twitter? That means they don't have to come to the old site, and they certainly don't have to come to the new. So to say, when you put that article up, that he had been, why would they do that?
Unverified. Well, again, it comes back to the memory hole. It's the same thing that's happening with the Alternative for Deutschland at the moment. They are trying to delete them from existence. Now, look, the Alternative for Deutschland it's not like the Brexit Party, right? The Alternative for Deutschland has a grassroots that is interested in direct action. They go out and they do protest, and they do serious, robust protest.
But they also have seats in Parliament.
I mean, course,
that's a little different than the UKIP. But you guys, I don't know.
Well, we didn't need them.
To do Brexit. But they actually are a real political party. They've had a number of seats. They go up and down as their issues become hotter or not hotter as they campaign. But they're a legitimate, alternative party.
In a democracy, they are a democratic force. They are part of the patchwork of German democracy, whether the establishment likes it or not. And now they're being told that not just the people involved in the party, who have long been persecuted, by the way, and targeted by authorities, but the party itself may be outlawed by the German authorities. Now, name me in human history a single regime, administration, republic, whatever, that believes in the banning of books, the policing of speech, the outlawing of political parties. Name me a single one of those that turned out to be the good guys in the long haul.
Well, it doesn't, because that's how you become authoritarian, right? You're seeing that's starting here. I want to make sure everybody understands. We're here to give you access and platforms to get, whether it's Numbers USA, whether it's going to the Georgia Star, whether it's listening to John Fredericks Radio, but a couple that you ought to hit, and we try to put up and repeat as often as possible. These are groups that are looking for grassroots volunteers. Become engaged. And like I said, you've got to pick what your own strengths are. Most importantly, pick what your own interests are. There's so many opportunities out there. And listen, the populist movement is a grassroots movement. Right? The muscle of the populist movement is you. And you saw from the November 12th when we had the 1 million people come up here in that march that day, it was so powerful and got people so much attention. That is the power of this movement. One thing we want you to go to, at least check out, everybody in this audience should check out precinctstrategy.com. This is Dan Schultz, a guy from Arizona, has been working on this. There's 400,000 billets in the Republican Party. There's only 200,000 that are taken. They want like Dan Schultz says, you're not really a Republican to become a part of the Republican Party, and that means go sign up for become a precinct committeeman. The way the structure of the Republican Party is, it's kind of actually the voting and everything comes from the committeemen. So just check it out. Go to the site precinctstrategy.com. Go check it out. See if it's for you. We'll never tell you to do anything that you don't think is for you, but there's so many opportunities out there. The other one is the great Scott Pressler. I think it's scottpressler.org. Mm-hmm. Pressler is a guy that's out there for voter registration. He's gone around the nation. I think he started a tour now after he left CPAC. We're going to try to catch up with him in the next couple of days.
By the way, can I pitch you on something here? Live.
No pitching in the war room, but go ahead. We'll make an exception this time. I'm going to tell a story about your pillows again. So.
I want to do
no. I want to do the pillows first. I got to do the Raheem. I got to do the Raheem.
I was going to lead you into it, but okay.
No, you can lead me into it.
Yeah.
Okay, lead me into it. Because I got to get to the image of Raheem as a small baby on his pillow.
It's quite a big baby, really, isn't it?
No. Now you are. But the thing you said, when I was a little boy, I had a pillow, and I would curl up, and I'd watch BBC, curl up on my pillow, and I was never happy. And I never got sleep.
Happy watching the BBC.
Never got sleep until in fact, go ahead. Give me your pitch.
No, the pitch is about the nationwide tour. I want to do the nationwide tour.
Okay.
Now I'm saying the War Room nationwide tour and a real nationwide tour.
Okay.
RV.
Okay.
Stuffed with my pillows.
Okay.
Well, mostly because I'll need to sleep on them.
Okay.
But I think, see, I was in Arizona.
Take it on the road.
Take it on the road. I was
Yeah.
in Arizona, and also the border. We've got to do a border symposium again.
Well, we're going to go back to El Paso. We got to in the weather.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, this is a crisis building down there, and that wall. People have to understand. The border is controlled by the cartels. Nobody comes across anymore that just kind of wanders across. It's all. They monetize everything. They monetize the human trafficking. They monetize the drug trafficking, obviously. But no, we're going to kick that off. I would love to start that in El Paso. By the way, the 2 symposiums we had in the summer of 19. You had Rosemary Jenks. You had CIS. The Center for Immigration Studies. You had all the top people down there in the blazing heat, but we made it work. And here's what was most interesting from the El Paso community. I'll bet you 80 to 85% of the audience was Hispanic, working class and middle class Hispanics. Some Democrats, a lot of Republicans, and they were this was an issue. That was the burning issue, and one is the economics, and the other is the security. We built that part of the wall. We built the wall right up that hill because the Border Patrol said, hey, this is one the Army Corps of Engineers hasn't gotten to yet, may not get to for a while. This is when President Trump was hung up by Pelosi. Remember, they had that huge fiasco at the end of 18, in the beginning of 19. And the border is going to become a major crisis right now. The mainstream media doesn't want to address it, but I got to tell you, it's going to explode, as Steve Cortez says, in April and May. Definitely, I would love to take. Well, I'll anchor here. You go on the road with your. Maybe it's the run up to your wedding. Maybe do Raheem's.
That's the stag party.
Maybe
it's
no.
National tour.
No, I'm sending your fiance with you. Listen, I want to go back to the image of Raheem is the first one really to talk to me about My Pillow because Raheem's had trouble sleeping. You need a good night's sleep. We only get 4 or 5 hours, so you got to fire up the football. Mike Lindell and the great team of My Pillow is now a sponsor of the War Room. Go to mypillow.com. You got to put the promo code in, War Room, 66% discounts on many of the goods. You've got a lot to choose from. I think they have 110 products right now, including the towels and the sheets and all that. We'll get to more about that later. 800-873-1062, 1062. Go to check it out. We got a big benefit they've given us, which is the queen size premium My Pillow, which is Raheem's favorite, $29.98. Basically $69.98, a $40 discount. So we want you to go there today. Check out, use the promo code War Room, and remember, Raheem, I got to have that story again. As a small child, you were.
It wasn't. Look, I slept like a baby when I was a baby, right? But what I was saying is, and it's totally true, that there was a period in my 20s, so sort of that big, when I just couldn't get good sleep. Just could not get good sleep. I was all jacked up all the time. And it was like 2016, and I was in the store, and I saw the My Pillow. I got the My Pillow. Honestly, I am inseparable from that thing at night.
Is there no correlation between you coming to work for me and getting better sleep? Oh, maybe that's why you couldn't sleep from 2012 to 2016.
That's exactly
those
what it was.
4 years.
As soon as you went into the White House, I got perfect sleep.
My Pillow,
Perfect sleep.
a pillow, and that. We're gonna come back. Darren Beattie and the guys at Revolver have another great article. We're talking about fighters and who's standing up when the Georgia's legislature, these Republican executives around the country, or up here in Congress, who's actually standing up now and throwing down and say, no, we're gonna fight this. We're gonna fight it tooth and nail. These policies are too radical. What exactly are we looking for? The Revolver's got another brilliant piece up today. We're gonna bring in Darren Beattie, the publisher and editor-in-chief over there, one of the editors-in-chief of Revolver. He will join us on the other side of this break. Be back in a second.
We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP. They have all lied for too long.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, I want to read from the Revolver, an amazing story. It's up saying it's a strategy memo they've gotten hold of, and they're saying how the strategy memo shows the GOP, or at least GOP leadership, I guess, in the House, still doesn't get it. And I want to quote from this. The secret to GOP success going forward is to completely buy into the globalist left's toxic ideology, reducing people to identity checklist. And of course, when making that checklist, being a woman is better than being a man, being of color is superior to being white. This is toxic and suicidal. It submits entirely to the left's moral framing, which is both wrong and something the left will always be better at, and of course routinely results in the election promotion of subpar candidates. Now I want to bring in their publisher, one of the publishers and editors over at Revolver, Darren Beattie, is very well known to our audience. Look, we've had some tremendous candidates. I mean, we've had Boebert in here yesterday. We're going to try to get MTG in here. We've got, although she didn't win, we're going to have Kim Klacik, ran up in Baltimore tonight, is going to co-host with us. We're having Amanda Milius, who's a filmmaker, but we'd love to have her run for Congress. You've had law enforcement officials, you've had women, you've had, there's a couple dynamic now new members of Congress that are people of color. We've won down in these Hispanic districts, former veterans. Aren't you guys falling to the same thing about categorizing like that and not really looking for, are they MAGA and America First? My problem is if people are MAGA and America First, you're going to get the people in there that support the President Trump's, in this movement's ideology and its policies. If we don't get them in there that believe that, and to me that should be the requirement, regardless of your gender, regardless of your race, regardless, even if you're a veteran or not, and I love having veterans in there. Isn't that it? I mean, what's the basis of yours is that you think they're recruiting that just to do identity politics and they don't have any substance to them? Is that the point you're trying? Because this is a very controversial piece. I don't even need to say that because it's on Revolver. All the pieces on Revolver are controversial, but this one particularly. As soon as I read it, I contacted you and said we got to get you on because this one's going to explode.
Look, our discourse at this point is so extremely straitjacketed that anything with the remotest hint of an insight is going to be controversial, and so I fully embrace that description. But to clarify what this piece actually says. It's not I think with candidates, you have to go on a case-by-case basis. So we can deal with candidates on a case-by-case basis. My position, Revolver's position, is we want competent people. We want serious people, not clownish. We want competent, serious, and people who genuinely reflect the transformational politics that Trump represented in 2016. Those are the criteria that I advocate, that Revolver advocates, and I think most of your viewers would embrace. The issue here is this document. Let me read from this document. The issue here is from this Congressional Leadership Fund. And with a name like that, you already know it's a joke. I'm sorry to say. Like, with a name like that, it's going to be a joke. But the Congressional Leadership Fund, what do they have to say about the Republicans outperforming expectations in 2020? Did they outperform expectations because the other side was embracing destructive race riots throughout the city? Did they outperform because the other side was embracing even more destructive and unnecessary lockdown policies? No, they say. They suggest the reason that all of these 15 seats Republicans were able to flip, they were won by women, minority, or a veteran. They're emphasizing precisely these identity characteristics that the left has made its whole mode of being in emphasizing these identity characteristics. And the Republicans try to play that game. You saw it with the criminal justice reform, with the prison break, with the Kushner policies. It never works. It's always disappointing. It's always weak, and it never addresses and confronts the actual problems head on. So this piece says, look, we want the best people for the job, but let's not play that dumb identity game that the left invented, and by virtue of that invention, they're always going to play it better than us anyway. So let's not engage in a third-rate version of an immoral way of viewing at politics. Let's run competent people, serious people, and people who actually reflect the agenda that Trump ran on in 2016.
Isn't the fact that they won in these tough districts in a tough year, right? When we, for whatever reason you want to say we're not at 1600 Pennsylvania, isn't that by definition show that they were good enough and tough enough? And my point is the thing that I found most interesting was not that so much is that you said, hey, in the categories they put out, they say it's about socialism. Well, look, I don't know. You
Oh,
can
yes.
argue, I
Well,
don't know
yeah.
if you can argue socialism. MAGA. Look, this is state capitalism. I don't see them arguing socialism. They're making more money than ever. Phill Kline's going to be on here right after you to talk about how the collusion of state capitalism with big government and the social media oligarchs, all that, they're making more money than ever on the CCP virus. Right? I don't see any of the guys.
Right. No, you're. Yeah. You're totally right.
And this whole
100%.
nonsense down in Georgia, in this runoffs, it's socialism versus capitalism. I don't know if anybody in Georgia believes that. It's about a radicalized agenda. Go ahead.
Yes. My facetious description of how dumbed down our political discourse has become is our politics has literally become socialism versus hamburgers. And I think some people have actually used that description literally. But this is a problem, is that a term like socialism, it's just this referent that's out there in the air, some kind of vestigial element from the politics of the 80s that really doesn't get to the things that actually matter today. In fact, in some ways, I think socialism would be a great improvement. Having lockdown policies associated with the greatest transfer of wealth in history from the middle class to the oligarch class, and then giving people $600 checks, that's not socialism. That's an oligarchy. That's what we have now. We have an oligarchy, and I think in many ways that's much worse than socialism. But again, the Republican Party is still wedded to this anachronistic politics of the 80s where socialism is this vocabulary that they have that doesn't describe anything actually going on on the street.
Okay, so let's go, regardless of whether they're veterans or police officers or not, whether they're women or not, ethnicity, color, what are you're saying you want them to back the transformative politics of the MAGA movement and Donald J. Trump in America First. What are when you look as one of the great poobahs over at Revolver, when you guys put that list together, what are the 2 or 3 top things that Darren Bay says to say, hey, if I see somebody making a speech on that, we're interested, we're going to start following that person. But if they're not, if they're a neoliberal neocon, we're not interested. So what are the policies that you're looking for to say are transformative?
Right. Well, as you know very well, because you were one of the architects of this, I think the key pillars of that kind of transformational Trumpist agenda, you don't even need to associate it with Trump, is, sovereign borders, sovereign country. That means real borders. It means keeping immigration under control, both legal and illegal. It means fashioning reasonable trade policies that redound to the benefit of the general public. And it means, I think, perhaps most importantly, not engaging in these forever wars. And I think it is kind of disappointing that even, Trump ran on a anti-neoconservative foreign policy. He ran on being against the forever wars, condemned the Iraq war, always wanted to bring the troops home. And there was a period there where we had all branches of government. We had the most populist president ever, and we weren't able to successfully, even with, bring the troops home from Afghanistan. And so I think another thing to consider in this whole conversation, and made a consideration, which is disturbing, people don't want to hear it, but I think it's important at this stage of the game to say that with all the talk about election fraud, perhaps the real delusion, the real election fraud is the delusion that simply winning elections translates to wielding power. And I think one thing that we've seen from the Trump presidency is that isn't necessarily the case. And I think one very clear bottleneck to being able to wield power, even if you win elections, that's always been clear, but now it's as clear as ever, is the national security state itself. The fact that the national security state, which is supposed to protect us from foreign enemies, has been repurposed, redeployed domestically to crush the energies associated with Donald Trump's victory, to crush any kind of resistance from the American middle class. And that's why I love veterans. I have tremendous respect for the military generally, but that's why I would, if it offends people, I'm sorry, but I have to say that listing being a Navy SEAL as a kind of, by virtue of that, one is qualified to deal with politics today, maybe, elevating people whose chief qualification is obeying authority is not the right answer right now when the authorities have declared war on Trump supporters and on populists in the United States. We need people who are able to stand up to authority, to stand up to the government, and to stand up to every national security institution which has become corrupt and hostile to the American people.
I think the veterans and the Navy SEALs, et cetera, they're going to jump into this campaign, will be able to defend themselves in that regard, or not. I'm sure they'll be able to make a compelling case because these are tough, strong people. Real quickly, we got about 30 seconds. This fiasco up here about the Capitol being taken down by terrorist groups and shut down today. What say you, Darren? You got about 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I think this whole thing is ridiculous. And in another piece, a revolver piece that's become quite important, it's really like it's a blood libel on Trump supporters. This whole narrative is used as a pretext to recharacterize Trump supporters effectively as domestic terrorists, or at least potential domestic terrorists. Very dangerous.
We're gonna get it all up. We can take a break. We'll get Beattie's social media.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, you know the issues we're talking about for the Save This Republic, and as goes this nation, so goes the world. We're at an inflection point in American history, the great fourth turning, and a great awakening happening at the same time. So we need you around for the long haul, and we need you energized, on point, on the ramparts. Remember, if you're in the war room, you're in the arena, and that's why every day we talk about these different organizations you can join and participate in. We started a new relationship with a company. We go to warroomdefense.com. That's warroomdefense.com, all one word. Get the War Room Defense Pack. We've got now up there for free zinc and vitamin D3. Okay, with the Spartan label, and actually a War Room. I don't know if you can see that, but they actually got a War Room logo right at the top, right? The War Room Pandemic logo, which we're very proud of. And Raheem made that great open in the first day of the War Room Pandemic. I think he cut it. Some people want to change it. I love it. That's where we're staying. We need you. If you're a Patriot warrior, we need you as a health warrior. And so that's where you got to go to warroomdefense.com. Go there today. Find out about the program. You got to pay, I think, shipping and handling, but you'll get all that information on there. Start with the zinc and the vitamin D3. We've got a lot more coming after that. We need you around for the long haul. Mr. Raheem Kassam.
And we're getting the deal with the company for the gin.
Can we announce that yet?
I think so.
Okay, tomorrow we're working to have and this is because of Raheem, a very special opening. Tomorrow we're going to have Amanda Milius is going to be here, the great young filmmaker, John Milius' daughter. She worked at the State Department, worked in the Trump administration, great filmmaker with Lee Smith's book, The Plot Against the President. She's going to be our co-host for the entire time, and we're going to start the show tomorrow at 10 o'clock, if we can pull it off, with the 105-year-old woman who Raheem was able to identify that's gotten through CCP virus, the COVID-19, with I don't think with a vaccine. She's gotten it through with gin-soaked raisins. So we will have her on tomorrow.
And I will have you know that I have just personally ordered 3 pounds of gin-soaked raisins, and I will be trying that diet.
Okay, we may have a special on that too. That may become part of the health warrior. Go to the health with Raheem's own gin. Okay, Darren Beattie, who's one of the smart. Remember, he was a speechwriter in the White House, only member of Ivy or Ivy equivalent faculty that supported Trump. Came out publicly and supported Trump before the 2016 election, and has suffered from that. One of the smartest guys around. And one of the elements he talked about in the last segment was about what happened during the CCP virus, what happened during this pandemic, what actually went on. We've had essentially, I think, the greatest concentration of wealth in American history. It looks like it could turn out to be that. Phill, Kline, who is at Amistad Project and doing a great fight around the nation on finding out on November 3rd what exactly happened and how we can stop it and make sure it never happens again, and also hold people accountable and see what can still happen about November 3rd. Because remember, the more that comes out, the more that's going to go with Biden hiding, not doing press conferences, being cut off by his staff from having to address any issues. Trust me, his we're trying to get Richard Barris on tomorrow to talk about his approval polling, because that means no political capital in those 4 verticals of those radical plans, except for the COVID, because they're going to use reconciliation of that, are going to be stopped dead in its tracks. Why he has no political capital. Phill Kline brought up this in his talk with us yesterday. Audience blew up and wanted him to come back. So, Phill, what did you mean? Darren Beattie kind of teed you up and almost said kind of a preamble to what you were saying yesterday. What were you talking about when you talked about like the Zuckers and these guys made a good investment of $350 million because it ended up they made a fortune? What? There are no conspiracies, but no coincidences. So what happened?
Well, this is just business doing what unfortunately business in America does today, and that is use their relationship with government to benefit their business rather than to lead based on principle of liberty and freedom and allowing equal opportunity to the marketplace. What has happened during the shutdowns is that there's been one of the most massive transfers of wealth from Main Street business to big tech and transfers of wealth to big tech owners in United States history. And it doesn't take a little bit but scratching the surface to see it. The billionaires have become gazillionaires during the shutdown. The large business, big tech, a lot of the market has been pushed online because of the shutdowns, and the big business can respond to the government mandates while the small business cannot. And you have to understand the breadth of these mandates. They're almost impossible for a small business to respond to, but big business has. Now, this goes back a ways, and I want to take you back, if you'll bear with me for a second.
Sure.
Back into the 1950s, for example, when assume you have a single parent, a husband leaves, or a woman needs to start a business and she wants to cut hair. It would cost her about $25 to get into business. Today, we regulate barbers. We have the most regulated society in human history, despite the fact people aren't dying in barber shops. We don't have wild barbers running around with sharp scissors hurting people. But we make them now go to school to learn what they already know how to do. We make them go through all of this training. Why? Because it protects the market of those who are already doing barbering, and they support it. Somebody who wants to get into that market now would spend $50,000 to try to get into barbering. And now business has learned. Support government regulation that you can comply with to push out your competitors. And that's what big tech did with the lockdowns. It's not surprising. And now big tech is supporting the Democratic Party because they were the primary party for the lockdowns.
You know, it's interesting. You connect dots here, what you're talking about, Phill. The recall, and I want to connect dots out to California, the second front that's opening up in the Biden administration. That recall is driven by two groups, entrepreneurs that have said these lockdowns have been so draconian. You've taken care of big business in Silicon Valley. You're destroying us. And moms of school-age children. The schools are closed. The businesses are closed. And they've had a revolt out there. We'll have Tom Del Beccari on tomorrow. Try to get him on tomorrow. They've had a revolt driven by what you're saying. People are now fighting back. How does Zuckerberg's, your analysis, because you're the first guy to unearth this and make it a national story, and you're fighting it everywhere. How did Zuckerberg think this through and game the system to make sure that at the end of the day the oligarchs would make out?
Well, there's a couple of things about it. First of all, you have to understand that the left's love of these type of emergency powers has been standing. They've been writing scholarly papers about environmental emergencies, gun violence emergencies forever and a day so that they can bypass the democratic process and achieve policy options they could not otherwise achieve. On top of that, you've got big business and big tech that is not necessarily concerned about individual liberty and freedom in America as much as they are concerned about access to markets around the world, as well as the ability to defeat competitors, to gobble up competitors. So you had this burgeoning love for emergency orders and this left belief that they know best for all of us, that really they have to protect us from ourselves, teaming up with a big tech alignment of engendering more wealth for themselves, to be able to claim to be altruistic while shutting down their competitors. And it was a perfect match. And we see that's why these lockdowns are going on and on and on and on. It's not science. I mean, their lead scientist has said, don't wear masks. wear one mask, wear three masks. It all depends, of course, on the context of when he's speaking as to what he needs to say. America has never locked down before the healthy. It has quarantined the unhealthy, and it has protected the vulnerable. And anytime we have on a couple of occasions, we interned Japanese Americans and we forcibly sterilized people against their will when we said that they were diseased in their genetics. Anytime America has locked down the healthy, it's a dark stain on our nation's history. And this will, again, also be a dark stain on our history. We are destroying the hopes and dreams of millions of Americans for this folly. Freedom is not measured by science. Thank God it's not the definition. And government keeping us safe from all potential harm is not the role of government. It's to protect us in our individual intrinsic freedoms. If our freedoms were defined by science, I'll tell you what, the only thing that I could eat, Steve, is this green sludge that my daughter purees from the vegetables and grasses growing around our home, which tastes,
Right.
well, I don't drink it.
Let me ask you.
If that was the role of government, I'd have to drink that every day. We're not thinking through these things.
We got about a minute or two. Do you think that right now that the evidence is coming down on the side of a Ron DeSantis approach to this, which is targeted interventions, use data science to do kind of a logical, evidence-based backup where you can do open up a state and you still do the targeted interventions to make sure people with comorbidities and the people who are going to be particularly vulnerable will have additional protection, and it kind of contra to Cuomo, who's sending the sick back to the nursing homes and saying at the end, hey, why does it matter where they died, right? Where do you think history is going to come out?
Absolutely, it will be proven to be the better approach. And another significant issue there is that it will show that the democratic process, open and transparent with public hearings to make law rather than governors waking up and deciding this day the law is what I say and it might change tomorrow, is always better in protecting freedom and liberty.
Phill, how do people get to you? The Amistad Project, also any social media, how do people track you?
My Twitter is P as in Phill, D like David, Kline, Kline. And then my got-freedom.com, GOT-freedom.com.
Phill Kline, thank you for joining us today in the War Room. Raheem, this gets back to this thing about the socialism, about the control. Tom Friedman at the New York Times, he said, and I think it was the beginning of, right after Trump won, I think it was sometime in 16 or early 17, that they liked the model of he would like to have the model of the CCP for a day. Remember that? Yeah. He would like to have he said then we could take care of climate change, we could take care of all these issues that have heretofore kind of held us back, right? That we could actually get on top of these. The liberals are now gone. I think that this progressive left and really this kind of liberal fascism or progressive fascism, they admire the model of the Chinese Communist Party. Now, they may not want the concentration camps, right? But they want the authority. They want a couple of in each industry vertical, a couple of big companies that they can control.
Being charitable.
Okay, fine. Jump in here. I'm teeing you up.
Remember, AOC says she's making lists, right? What do you do with lists like that? It's interesting you say that because, of course, they're sympathetic to it. By the way, Friedman's had his way. We haven't had the CCP model for a day. We've had it for a year now. But of course they're sympathetic because what's happened over the last 10, 15 years, as Natalie Winters writes every day, we find a new group, a new organization, a new person who has been groomed by the Chinese Communist Party. We did a whole episode on the podcast about this yesterday. The Congressional Black Caucus was sending constituents to China, and those constituents were then writing fawning reviews of the Chinese Communist Party when they returned to the United States. I literally just hit publish on a story right now. The founder of PolitiFact, which is used by Facebook and by everybody. Yep. The founder of PolitiFact was a journalist in residence at a CCP-run influence group called USCET.
Sure.
And these are the people, remember, when a journalist wants to report a story, like let's say because PolitiFact has gone through some National Pulse reporting before on Kamala Harris, her husband, in the Chinese Communist Party. They say, it's not true, it's not true. And so all other reporters just go there and say, oh, well, PolitiFact says it's not true, it's not true. Actually, if you scroll down the PolitiFact article, they admit, actually, the National Pulse reporting was fair and accurate. It's everyone else commenting about it that wasn't fair and accurate, right? But PolitiFact it's a place they go, and their founder, Chinese Communist Party
that's the
running
lead
dog.
story on the Pulse right now. Okay,
Yep.
I'll be back in a second.
They have all lied for too long.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Make sure you're supporting Mike Lindell and the great team over there at MyPillow. I mean, Mike Lindell is a warrior on so many levels. The one thing I love most about him is not so much the election fighting or everything else he's doing, but his recovery network, the Lindell Recovery Network, where it really has a biblical-based, Christ-based way to basically help addicts, because he's the first to admit he was a very fallen guy. So go to mypillow.com today, put in promo code War Room, or call 800-873-1062. Also, with the promo code War Room, you get up to 66% off, and you'll have all kind of opportunities. And of course, this great deal on the premium pillow, the queen size premium pillow, which is $40 off. But there's so much more there. Make sure you go there today. Okay, so this is all about fight, and we started the show with Raheem up on the Capitol. It's the 155th, I think, anniversary of today. In a few minutes, where then President Abraham Lincoln. People forgot the second time he did not run as a Republican. He ran as in part of the National Union Party with Johnson, a Democrat, a Union Democrat from Tennessee. He gave, I think, the most powerful political speech in American history, his second inaugural address that took place just hundreds of yards from here. We're going to end the show with that. Today, Darren, Beattie, and others, we've had pretty controversial guys on. Phill, Kline, talking about what happened during the CCP virus and what's happened to the country. This is why we're fighting every day, and we're winning. Victory begets victory. Darren is, and I don't agree with Darren about the thing. He feels that people are getting in too much into box checking. I do think McCarthy has done a good job of recruiting. That's why I call him the pledge chairman. I think the candidates have been strong. To Darren's point, and by the way, particularly like on the I'm a vet. My daughter's a vet. My kid brother's a Navy pilot. The vets can stand for. I do defer to someone when I see him as a vet, but it doesn't get my vote totally or my support. I want to make sure they stand for. I think what Beattie's most important part is we need to be aligned with these policies. That's why we don't need. They talk about a Big Tent. If the Big Tent's going to have globalist, neoliberal, neocon policies, we're never going to move this agenda forward. And we're going to have Kim Klacik on tonight as our co-host. We're going to have Amanda Milius on tomorrow. We're going to have a lot more young people in here as co-host. Raheem, the entire team at National Pulse is young. CPAC, all the energy down there was not so much on stage. It was out there with the young people. They support these policies, and that's what's changing the makeup of the Republican Party. When you're winning districts and you're winning counties down in the Rio Grande Valley, and you've got that Democrat that Cortez talked about yesterday that says, hey, the Democrats are going to lose additional congressional seats down there because of the policies, these populist policies of Donald Trump. You're going to have a realignment in this country, right? In the Navy SEALs and the veterans like myself, we can stand ourselves. We don't totally kowtow to authority figures, although some might. But guys can stand up, and men and women can stand up. And I know my daughter doesn't, and I certainly don't. So I can just speak from personal, understanding. Raheem, your thoughts. You started the day. We're going to cut here in a minute. We're going to actually end with the second inaugural address of President Lincoln. You started the day up there, sir.
And I'll end my day around here as well. And every day that goes by, I think, is a betrayal of the founding principles of this country. I mean, I think it was today is the anniversary of the first session of Congress up in New York. And you think
when that was the Capitol.
You're right. And you think about what you said at the beginning, what would those people say about what they're seeing around them today?
We're on the shoulders of giants.
And not just, and I don't agree with everything that all of the framers and the founders wrote, and that's the beautiful thing about what they wrote, is it gave you the ability to disagree with them. They wanted the ability, if you go to the Jefferson Memorial, I don't know if you're even allowed there at the moment, but if you go to the Jefferson Memorial, You know, it's there's a stark kind of a left liberal quote up there, and like a more right law and order quote up there. And the left one is it says, you know, requiring a man. It's holding a nation to the strictures of its predecessors is like requiring a man to wear the same coat he wore as a child. And so that's the appeal to progress, right? But as Barry Goldwater said, you know, progress isn't really a hallmark of the progressives. Progress is actually the hallmark of the conservative, because progress means you learn from your mistakes. But the left doesn't do that. The left actually just likes to make the mistakes. And so all of those thoughts are sort of swimming through my head as I go and I walk around the Capitol and I see just this big mistake that's going on right now. You know, and for some people, yes, of course, it's nefarious and it's ill-spirited and it's meant to demoralize and demonize and terrorize the minds of the American public. But for some people, it's a deep, deep mistake that they're going along following these people.
We're going to end with Ken Burns's from the Civil War. I think it's Sam Waterston plays Lincoln. It's absolutely powerful. If you haven't seen the Civil War, I think it's 10 hours, 12 hours, absolutely magnificent. Everybody should get the DVD or go to the site. But we're going to end with their recreation from the documentary film The Civil War. This is President Abraham Lincoln, who would be dead, I think, 3 or 4 weeks after this, his second inaugural address.
Inauguration Day was cold and windy, just as it had been 4 years earlier. But the U.S. Capitol was now complete, its great iron dome in place, crowned by a bronze Liberty. Just before the president began to speak, the clouds parted, flooding the stand with brilliant sunlight.
Fondly do we hope, fervently do we pray, that this mighty scourge of war may speedily pass away. Yet if God wills that it continue until all the wealth piled up by the bondsman's 250 years of unrequited toil shall be sunk, and until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another drawn with the sword, as was said 3,000 years ago, so still must be said, the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. With malice towards none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations.